Yes, hi.
Hi. Lockheed here, ringing from the census.
Yes.
Legislation team. Hey, you have some questions.
Yes, I do.
How can I help you?
What's your particular expertise, position?
Okay, I work in the parliamentary and legislation team.
Right, okay, great.
So dealing with the legal aspects of the census.
That's great, okay. I am deeply concerned about the choice of using Lockheed Martin. I'm very reluctant to give away any of my details to anybody, to be honest. And any suggestion, like you have on your website, that you're going to a tiny little agency like the ONS is going to be able to resist one of the largest corporations in the world is of no use to me whatsoever. Bearing in mind that once the information is on a computer, well, let me ask you this question first. We'll start with this. Is the information going to be backed up?
Right, can I just go back a step further than that, really, just to explain the Lockheed side. They have a contract with us to provide some support services. So that's around printing questionnaires, running help website and a helpline and that. All of those elements of the contract have actually been then subcontracted to EU and UK companies. So Lockheed themselves, because there's a lot of people who are very concerned about what they do for their daily business. Lockheed themselves aren't actually having anything to do with any census data or processing any census forms. It's different companies that are subcontracted by them. So in terms of them getting hold of personal data, they can't. They have no access to it whatsoever. No Lockheed staff will ever have access to census data.
Right. But you're saying they're subsidiary companies do? Did you say?
Subcontracted companies. There's a company called UK Data Capture. They will be scanning. There's a great big processing centre in Manchester where all the paper questionnaires will go. And in this processing centre, the envelopes are opened and the questionnaires are scanned onto a great big census database, which is what then ONS staff will use to then create census statistics, which will be released in due course.
Right.
And it's those figures that are then used for planning and allocation of public funding, etc.
So you're saying that Lockheed Martin are not involved with data capture?
They have designed the questionnaire, the online questionnaire.
Right.
And they have designed the systems. And we've worked with some companies, their subcontractors have worked with us to design the questionnaire online, but all the data coming in that they will not have access to now.
So they wrote the code for the systems?
I couldn't tell you the exact specifics of how that worked. That's not my field of expertise. I can try and find out for you if you want the definites of who's done what. The subcontractors certainly have been involved in the development, but I couldn't tell you exactly who's written what, but I can find out for you if you'd like me to.
Well, yes, I'd like to find that out. Also, further to that, bearing in mind what's happened with WikiLeaks, once information is on a computer, it's going to be backed up, isn't it? Is it going to be backed up?
Yes.
Right. So, once information is on a computer, who's to tell what's going to happen? Lockheed Martin, by the way. Why on earth, for a start? Why on earth would anybody make a decision to have the company like Lockheed Martin should be involved in any way whatsoever with this information? This company are responsible for the.
The American company, it's actually Lockheed Martin UK, which are a British subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. Under European procurement laws, we are obliged to put these kind of contracts out to tender, and Lockheed Martin UK's consortium of different subcontractors came in and won a tender on those basis. So we have to be fair and above board, and we can't just turn around and say we don't like one company's politics or the way they do business.
Why not? Why on earth can't you?
We don't have much choice.
If I was the Nazi party of the UK and I was very, very good at processing, creating and processing forms, yes, and I put in a tender and I proved that I could do it cheaper and more efficiently than anybody else, you'd have to select me even though I was the Nazi party of the UK.
Well, we can't take political bias into account, so whatever people's views are, in terms of the way they work, that's what we'd have to go on. But in this contract, there are a lot of very strict contractual elements that ensure that Lockheed Martin will never get hold of the data.
How could you possibly?
Run through those kind of things with you?
There's two issues with regard to Lockheed Martin, and they're related. The first one, of course, is nothing to do with the protection of data. It's the issue that the company is an offence. What they do is an offence to many peace-loving people. They are not a random company. They are primarily an arms company, and they make weapons.
I appreciate that.
Right. So you're saying that the government is not allowed to take that into account. That people whose precious information is being collected might be offended by an arms company. They're not allowed to take that into account. So it's against the law.
The other point to consider is they have a lot of experience. They worked on the 2001 census with us. They've worked on the Canadian census. They have a lot of experience working with the US census. So this is a separate arm of the company. I agree. Their major business is arms dealing. I totally agree with you. But they have a completely separate census division, which works internationally with different countries, providing a fantastic service for censuses. They are the world leaders in this.
Well, can I just put it to you, and I just wonder what you personally think of this idea, yes? You've got a company, as you just said, whose primary business is creating killing apparatus, right, for defence and for offence, okay? Yep. And they why do you think that such a company would diversify, of all things, into collecting information about people? Yes, a company which not only does arms but also is also very directly linked, for example, to the CIA and the authorities in the United States to spy people. Allegedly, okay, but let's say they're not. Let's just say they just make guns and airplanes that kill people, right? Why do you think they would be interested in collecting information about people? Or let's put it this way, I put it to you that the reason they have become such great experts, offering cut down prices, it appears, for collecting this information or being involved in the collection thereof, is because there is benefit to them in their ability to sell arms in some way, or to sell information, or to be involved in that whole military machine that they're involved in.
Right. Possibly, I'm not sure I quite agree with you. But in terms of this contract, there is no way they can have access to data. They will not have any data to sell.
I don't know how you can say, how can you say things so categorically when when we've had something like WikiLeaks, which just takes one person, right, to put out information like that. How can you categorically say that? I mean, it's incredible for you to say that, especially bearing in mind that Lockheed Martin Lockheed Martin. Hold on a second.
Won't see any data. None of their staff will ever have any access to the data. The site where it's all processed is highly secure. We control ONS. We control the access rights of anyone who goes on there. We control the access rights of anyone who has any access to any of the databases or electronic storage systems where the data is held. And Lockheed Martin will not or ever have any access to any of the data.
Leave Lockheed Martin out of it for a minute, because that's one particular aspect of it. I don't know how you can ever say that any data is completely secure. How could you possibly guarantee the security of data? Look at what's happened. The government lost.
Make it, and all of our systems are accredited and follow government guidelines. We are as secure as we can possibly be.
Well, that's another question. Anyone
who discloses any of this information, it is against the law, and they can go to prison for 2 years. Anyone working on the census is well aware of this and signed statutory confidentiality undertakings. Okay,
I'm just to let you know that this is a long discussion, and I appreciate you calling me back. And I don't think we're likely to. I don't think I'm going to be very likely to get anywhere to feel secure enough. So my next question to you is, a lot of people have approached me, and this is the reason why I'm calling. It's not for myself so much, but for others, to find out about what the actual process is. Because as far as I'm concerned, I actually believe that by filling in this form, I'm breaking the law, simply because this form is because Lockheed Martin are involved. As far as I'm concerned, have you ever seen the government's own definition of terrorism? Do you know what Okay, so I would highly recommend you go there just for your own personal reasons, just to see it. It's very interesting. And basically, according to the government's own definition of terrorism, it seems beyond any reasonable doubt that what Lockheed Martin are involved in is pure terrorism. Okay, according to the government's definition, and anybody who is involved in supporting anything that any terrorist organization or supporting any types of terrorism is themselves committing an offence. So there are people I know who believe that by filling in this form and getting involved with this is in itself an offence, according to the Terrorism Act 2000. Okay? So now these people want to know what exactly is going to be the process of what's going to happen if they choose to avoid breaking the terrorism law and end up breaking then the law of not filling in the census. What's going to be the actual process?
Okay, well, what will happen is we have a questionnaire tracking system, which in every questionnaire, I don't know if you've received a questionnaire, they started being posted out yesterday. Every questionnaire has a barcode on it. So when we deliver a questionnaire, we scan the barcode to say a questionnaire has been delivered to a household. Right. When we get one back, we scan it again and tick that household off our list to say we've got
Where do you scan it? So when you get one back, does it have to get to your office before you scan it? Is that how it works?
Yes, it's scanned by Royal Mail as it comes into their sorting offices before it goes on to the processing centres.
Right, got it, yeah.
So after a period of a couple of weeks or so, we will then start to go and knock on doors of those houses that haven't responded to check if they need any help, and to kind of encourage them to do a response.
Right.
That will carry on then for a number of weeks.
Yeah.
Eventually, we will start sending reminder letters round to people who still haven't responded, and if all else fails, we will then send people round who will knock on the door and say, look, if you don't do this now, we could take legal action.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, we get people who completely refuse. They can then be interviewed under caution, and a case is prepared, which then gets sent on to the Crown Prosecution Service, who then decide whether or not to take prosecution forward.
Okay.
If they do, they would be summoned to appear in front of a magistrate, where the trial would be heard.
Got it. Okay. So then they'd have to plead, wouldn't they? They'd have to plead guilty or not guilty. So that would then they'd have to come back again, I presume. Yeah.
Yes. As with all criminal cases, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Great. That's great. Well, that's very clear. So what you're saying is people would come round. I mean, and if someone, let's say, chose not to, just didn't answer the door, then you'd start sending letters in, threatening letters. Is that what you're saying?
Not threatening letters as such. It's a letter that goes around and says, don't forget, you need to do your form. And eventually, they would get a letter that then said, look, this is legal requirement. And I assume then further down the line, they would get a summons to appear in court. Right.
And bearing in mind that only 38 people out of 1 million people who didn't do their census last time got prosecuted, there's no way of knowing how many people the Crown Prosecution Service are. If there are millions of people who who choose not to fill in the form for ethical reasons, then obviously we don't know how many of these are going to be prosecuted. Is that right?
We can't touch. We don't have a target or anything like that. We can't say. We need to see how many people refuse, and then the Crown Prosecution Service have their ways of filtering out whether cases have enough evidential strength that are in the public interest.
Right, I got it. Yeah. I mean, what about those people?
I couldn't tell you how many that would be.
I mean, how the thing is, what about those? I mean, how would you be able to, if someone, let's say, this isn't applicable to me personally, but if someone, let's say, is not registered at a particular property, just lives there, maybe pays rent. I mean, they couldn't possibly be tracked, could they?
In terms of, so what you're saying, if somebody lives at a property, pays rent, and doesn't complete their form, doesn't open the door when we come to find them or anything like that.
Yeah, you wouldn't know. You would. I mean, how would you be able to? You could only send letters to the occupier. I mean, you wouldn't even have a name of anyone to prosecute. How could you prosecute them?
To tell you the truth, I don't know. I'm not on the actual prosecution team, I'm not party to exactly how they're going to investigate cases, so I couldn't tell you on that. But yeah, right. So that's a good point.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much for your help. You've been most helpful.
No problem at all.
Thanks. Bye.